So how are you?
Good, thank
Good.
you.
Okay, so we covered a lot of stuff in our phone conversation, which ended up being our podcast. So I'm going to try and ask you some questions that we didn't talk about, or go a little deeper into some things that we did. So where I wanted to start with, I was so fascinated with how it all began for you. Meaning, you're sneaking out of your parents' house, going hang with the gypsies. So tell me a little bit more about your experience and the culture and how you fell in love with it prior to that moment when you started singing.
All right, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, so to start when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
When
Well, I think you said it was 14 when you.
Oh yeah, when I met the gypsies,
Yeah.
I was 14, and I was fascinated with their culture, and that's how it brought me to singing.
Mm-hmm.
Through meeting them and through discovering their music.
And I think in the interview you said it was the culture really that got you first before the music. What about the culture really drew you in and spoke to you?
They're really fascinating people. They have uh, they're I was 14 and I met these gypsies who were my age and they didn't go to school. So first of all, that was so cool. I was like, "What? That's amazing!" And they're very raw and because they never had to like put their hand up to ask to go to pee or so they're very raw with their emotions and they live every day like it's their last and they don't see further than a week. The gypsies don't know what it means to save money. When a gypsy does a concert and he gets a big chunk of money, he's like, "All right, I'm taking everybody to the restaurant," and that's it. It's done. And so I was very attracted by their way of life, and I would go with my little camera and film everything. Film the gypsies doing their dishes, the gypsies changing the chords on the guitar, the strings on the guitar, the gypsies cleaning their caravan, and I guess the more I fell in love with them, the more I understood their music because I had heard their music every year, living in a town where they would come every year, and there's a Django festival. So the music had not touched me until I understood it and where it came from.
And could you talk a little bit more how you made that connection, or what is it about
Yeah.
the music that reflects the culture and vice versa?
Well, what attracted me to their music is that it's music to be made for the family, for the friends, and it's to be enjoyed around the campfire and while the cooking is going on and the kids are running around everywhere. And more specifically, the improvisation of it, the improvisation side, and which is really just it's a music of the present moment, which is what to me was the connection between their way of life, which is a very in the moment way of life, and you never know what's gonna happen. And they're not making music to make a career. They don't care about. They don't even think of it like that it's possible to make a career in music. They just make music because they've had a guitar in their hands since they were little, and that's what goes with food and so yeah, it's what for me what was beautiful to live it like that.
That just sounds like an awesome way to begin your introduction to music. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so just awesome. So take us through that moment when before you talk about when you first sang, you told me the story of how that was raining and everybody had to go inside, but you started playing guitar. So how long were you playing guitar before that moment, and what was that like? How, you were taking lessons with one of the gypsies? You were trading something?
Lessons, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but that was my introduction to more particularly jazz music. But music was in my life since I was little because my parents love music, and my mother is from Dominican Republic and she loves to dance. And so there was always music playing in the house from Latin music, flamenco music, French chanson, Michael Jackson, and so the gypsies really they got me into wanting to make music. So yeah, one of the first gypsies that I met was this guy called Lumpy, and he gave me a beautiful red guitar and was teaching me the pompe, because in gypsy jazz there's no drums because the drums don't fit in the caravan. So how Django invented this style is the guitar becomes the percussive instrument, and it's chords that are all kind of barred like this because his fingers were burnt and paralyzed, so he couldn't make big chords like this. So all his chords sound kind of choked, and that's what makes the very percussive sound of tuk 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 tuk, which you'll hear tonight. And so Lumpy was a pompiste, so he never did a note of solo. All he does is so that's his job. He's the percussionist, and so he was teaching me la pompe, and in exchange I was teaching him to read, and one day his big brother, who is he is the virtuoso of the family, he is the one that does the solos, he asked me to learn a song called Sweet Sue. It was a song and that had lyrics, and they knew I took English in school, so I learned the song, and that was the night that it was raining, and we couldn't all fit in the caravan, so we went into this bus that was parked in the campsite, and we could hear the rain on the roof of the bus, and the whole family was there, and we started playing, and I sang Sweet Sue, and when I saw the smiles on everybody's face and the connection that was so much more direct than when I had the guitar like this, I decided at this moment that I wanted to sing and make people smile.
And you do. That is so that's just great. So you talked a little bit when we spoke about how at first your parents were against you going, but later the gypsies became part of your family. Talk a little bit about that, like how.
Yeah, well, the gypsies have a kind of a bad reputation because first they're different, and people are always scared of what's different, and they're outcasts. You know, they don't go to school, they don't have, they don't read, and people think. I would go out and hang out with the gypsies, and the townspeople would tell my parents, "I saw your daughter with a gypsy. Be careful! They're gonna take her away and marry her and trade her in for some goats or some silly stuff." And my parents, they didn't know any better, so I was grounded and not allowed to go. But I would sneak out my bedroom window, cross my backyard, cross the forest, and then get to the campsite, and and do that every night. And I didn't care. I was just so passionate. And at some point, they saw there was nothing they could do, and they saw that my passion for music was growing, and little by little they got to know them, because the gypsies would always ring at my house to ask if I was there, you know, and they're just so charming and so natural. And I think my mother started to really enjoy their company. And it's strange, but I kind of feel a similarity between the gypsies and the Dominican people. When I go to Dominican Republic, people of the island who are always smiling and laughing, and who enjoy every day, even if they have nothing, you know. And I think my mother connected with them, and so then my parents invited them, and now they get in line with shampoo and they take showers in my house.
So the first time you sang, you were 14, I think you said?
Yeah.
Probably around 14. So between then and the time you began, you I think, go to college to study music, what was your musical singing experience like? Like, I guess you were singing with the gypsies when they came to town, but the rest of the year, how did you develop your or practice, or what were you doing at that time?
The first thing I did is I bought a karaoke machine. Yeah, and I would put it was in the living room, and I would put the windows wide open so that everyone in the street will come up and down and hear someone singing. And I was singing Titanic and Whitney Houston and everything. And I was looking for more jazz songs to learn, but in the Django Reinhardt repertoire, there's not a lot of songs with words. So someone gave me a 4 CD box set of Ella Fitzgerald, and that was a big lesson. That I learned every note on those 4 CDs, and I got completely in love with the American songbook. And from that moment on, I think it started to form in the back of my head that I wanted to come to America. And so then, from then, a lot of things happened, you know. I applied for the Star Academy in France, which is kind of like American Idol, but in France. And I got chosen, but at the last minute when I saw the contract, I left because I just had discovered jazz, and I knew I was not going to be able to sing jazz on TV, so I wanted to learn more about it. And so I moved to Dominican Republic because I had met a pianist there, and I started to perform with him, and it was great. At some point I had 8 gigs a week, but I wanted to go to a place where I could get a challenge and where I was not the only jazz singer on the island. And so that's when I started to look at schools in New York, and I found Purchase College.
Wow. During that time, what do you think it was about the American Songbook or that recording that spoke to you? Do you have an idea or a sense of that?
Yeah, I think what I like about it is that it's kind of like it's a beautiful platform for communication, because you can go to any part of the world and you find a jazz club and musicians that don't speak the same language as you, but they all speak the American Songbook language, which is crazy. Everyone who is a jazz musician in any part of the world knows how to play Take the A Train or Honeysuckle Rose or I Got Rhythm. And so you can communicate with people who you can't talk with just by saying, hey, let's play this song and see what happens. And so it's just like every song in the American Songbook is kind of like a page where communication and connection and art can happen, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm always fascinated with young people who want to keep that music alive, and I think you just answered the question. It's the art along with the emotional connection that really makes the music alive in the moment. So I'll jump ahead a little bit. So it's not that far. You're in college, and you end up taking the summer and going out with your college mates, and you win the vocal contest. What did you sing
in Montreux?
Yeah.
I sing. Well, that was 2007.
Yeah. Not that long ago.
I sang a few songs, but I do remember one of them because what I think made my force during this competition is that all the girls came and they had arrangements, like 4-page arrangements, and it's the band from the competition. It's not your band, so you don't really know them, and so you're singing and you have to be thinking about making sure that the drummer remembers the hit on the 4th bar and that the piano doesn't mess up the ending or whatever. And they're like trying to play and reading the chart, and I arrived on the stage and they were like, "Where's your chart?" And I said, "I don't have one. We're just gonna play Oye Como Va. It's 2 chords, A minor, D7." And so they were so happy because they could just concentrate on the music, and we got a really nice connection going because all we needed to know was those 2 chords, and so we created together on the spot.
That's amazing. That's so smart, and I mean that's awesome.
It takes the pressure off.
Yeah, but it also allowed you to be free inside the music, I would bet. And what did you think when you won? What was going through your head besides I won?
Well, I pinched myself a few times, and I was super happy. And especially the first prize was to record an album for free in Switzerland, and it was my first album, so I was on a cloud, you know.
And that experience, we talked about it when we did the interview in the podcast. You said that you got sick as soon as you got to the studio.
Yeah.
So it took the 10 days got eaten up with you not being able to sing.
Yeah.
But how did you then, those last 2 days there where you just did everything, did you also mix and do all the stuff in those 2 days?
Oh no, just recorded.
Just recording.
Yeah,
Okay.
but because during those 10 days where I couldn't record, the band would just go in the studio every day and play. And so at the last 2 days when it was time to record, they were so tight and so practiced that it was super easy.
Yeah. Wow. So this is going so great, and we're almost out of time already. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's just so much fun. The question I wanted to ask you, just watching your performance in the Sondheim special, I was so in awe, floored. And if you guys out there haven't seen it, go check it out. The thing that blew me away was your ability to be so precise with the music, but at the same time bring emotion to it. So I'm wondering, how did you prepare for that? And how, like, it's a big thing. You're singing with Bernadette Peters at Sondheim. So how did you practice? How did you prepare? And in general, what do you do to take care of your voice and prep and be able to achieve that?
Well, in general, I don't really, do all that stuff, the warm up and all that stuff. But this was a Broadway thing, and the Broadway world is so different than the jazz world. The jazz world is like, we'll see what happens. The Broadway thing is like, you're singing 3 songs, so we need to rehearse for 2 weeks. So we had a lot of rehearsals and a lot of preparation. As for my voice, it was a challenge because I'm not used to singing in that style, the Broadway style. So the fact that we rehearsed a lot was good. But when I sing like what I'm singing tonight, it's I prefer it when I don't prepare so much, because then I feel like we're gonna take all the magic out, because I like when I get on the stage and I don't know what's gonna happen, and anything can happen, and it feels fresh and new. If you over rehearse, then you stop being in the moment.
Well, I think when we talked, you do take time to get into the lyrics and the melody when you're practicing, but then you just kind of, well, what is your process when you pick up a new song and you want to learn it?
The most important thing when I pick a song is the lyrics. That's number one, because the melody, the harmony, the rhythm, I can mess with that. I can do whatever I want with that. But the lyrics have to be something that I believe in and that I feel I can relate and that the audience can relate to. And so then I learn it, I find a few versions on the internet and learn, try to see which one is the most close to the way it was written. And then I find what it means for me and how I want to tell the story. And every night I want to tell it a different way. Every night I feel different about it.
Well, I can't wait to hear what you're going to do tonight.
Oh.
And one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience for a couple of questions. The other thing that I love that you experiment with is the looper. And I'm curious, when you're, there's a video on YouTube where you're in bed and you wake up and you just start, I love that song. Do you work that out, or are you improvising as you're playing around with it?
No, I just woke up and my looper just happened to be plugged in my bed. And, the loop is also very different than performing with the band, because with the band, anything can happen and we take each other places, and sometimes things go wrong, which is a good thing because it feels new and we try to see how we get out of there. But in the loop machine doesn't how do you say? It doesn't give you any chances. If you make one mistake, it comes back every time. So you have to be very concentrated. And so when I'm messing in my house, messing around with a looper, I improvise. I just press a button and sing a bass line and see what comes out, and then I press again and then see what harmony I come up with, and then what I'm hearing in the top part, and that's how I end up writing songs. But when I perform them, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Okay. Awesome. So we're going to open it up for just a few questions. I could talk to you all night. I have so many other questions I'd love to ask you. So do we have any questions from the audience? Any questions out there? There's one right up front. Hold on. We're going to get a microphone to you.
You can hear.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, well,
I'm pretty loud.
it's also...
Oh, okay. You said you had Django was an influence on you, and Ella with this. Who else influenced you? And when you came to the United States and you studied, did you have any teachers, or was there somebody who you studied with as far as voice is concerned?
So I've had many influences. It starts with Django, but even before that, like I said, Michael Jackson was a huge influence, and Stéphane Grappelli, who played with Django. Then after Ella, when I came to the United States, my teacher, the first assignment was to buy Kind of Blue, what you guys were listening to right before I got here. And that completely knocked my socks off. So then I got into Miles Davis and then Coltrane, and I had a phase where I was so into piano trios, and I listened to the Ray Brown, the Oscar Peterson, Ahmad Jamal, and then vocally, during my 4 years at Purchase, I was listening to only instrumental music. Then when I started to understand English better, I went back to lyrics and I started to understand all the songs that I had learned phonetically from the Ella albums, and fell in love with them even more and got into Chet Baker and Nancy Wilson and Billie Holiday. As for voice lessons, in the college that I went to, Purchase College, there was actually no voice program. So I was the only singer, the only girl as well. And I was getting everything, like ear training, arranging lessons, repertoire lessons, improv lessons, everything except vocal lessons.
All right, another question right up there, right over there.
Have you noticed any difference in the jazz cultures in France, where you grew up, and in New York, among jazz musicians?
Yeah, there are many differences. I guess musically, for the gypsy jazz, to me there's no other place like over there. For that, it's just the level is incredible, and the gypsies are just, they have that in their blood and in their soul. But I'm totally in love with the New York jazz scene. I just love the drive that the musicians have here. It's very different. Like in Paris, the scene is very small, and the clubs don't go that late, and during the week there's not much going on. So there's less of a drive than in New York. But yeah, there's many differences. But I love the music scene in New York. That's why I'm there.
All right, we have time for one more question. Do we have another question from our audience? No? Yeah, okay, well, I'll keep going. We have time for one more question. So my question is, it's kind of a two-part question. One, talk a little bit about your band, particularly your two guitarists. They're just amazing. And how did you find them? How did you get them to be in your band? And then the second question is, how do you work out your arrangements? Since you studied arranging, are they more organic, or do you write them out, or is it a mixture of the two?
So the two guitar players are French, and the gypsy guitar player, I met him 13, 14 years ago in my hometown where there's a Django festival. I met him during the Django festival. He was one of the guys that would jam around the campfire until 10 a.m. in the morning, then maybe sleep a little and then play again. And so we've been friends since forever. And when I had the idea of doing this project with different guitars, different sounds, and all playing together, I immediately thought of him. And he lives in France, so I always fly him out to play because there's no one like him. And his name is Adrien Moignard. And the other one is Michael Valianou, and he's also French, but he lives in Brooklyn, and that's where I met him 7 years ago. And he plays the electric guitar, and he is him and I were the kind of the mommy and daddy of the project. So when it comes to arrangements and writing songs, we work it out together, him and I. And because I have more the idea of what kind of groove I want, what kind of vibe I want, what energy, how I want it to start, how I want it to end, and he can transform that into more concrete guitar parts. You know, what is the role for each guitar? But nothing has ever been written out. We don't write. I don't write music. I don't know how to write music, or read. So everything is learned by ear. And then when we get the rest of the band, after Michael and I have worked out some things, we get the rest of the band to try out the songs that we wrote or the arrangements we came up with, and we see what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes Sean on the bass has an idea and we try, and so then it becomes collaborative. And as we perform the songs and the arrangements, they change and they mold into different things.
Awesome. Great. Give a big round of applause to our guests. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you later.